Kartikeya was cooking for Prabhupada. And one day Govindadasi came and she brought some wheat germ. And Kartikeya saw this wheat germ. He said, next time Prabhupada asks for halava, I'm going to make it with wheat germ instead of with semolina, with the farina. And so one day it rained. And he said Prabhupada used to like to take halava on rainy days because it, gave him lots of warmth. So he asked Kartikeya to make this halava. So Kartikeya went in the kitchen, and then he was thinking that, oh, Prabhupada's going to be so pleased, I'm going to make this halava with wheat germ. He's going to like this so much. You're just meditating like that, how much Prabhupada was going to like this. And so he offered it to the deities, and he brought it into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada looked at the bowl. He said, what is this? Halava means farina. And then with his left hand, which is very heavy, when you reject something with left hand, that's really rejection. So take it away. So Kartikeya, he was just, his whole heart was like, that, and he was a very sensitive fellow, and his whole heart was that Prabhupada's going to be so pleased. So he was just like completely devastated. And he went into the temple room and he sat down in front of the picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he began to pray that, actually, I was just trying to please your spiritual son, and now he's so upset with me, I don't know what to do. And he was just like crying, because he's a very sensitive fellow. He said, but actually, I was just trying to please your spiritual son. Suddenly he heard Prabhupada's voice, Kartikeya? Kartikeya? And he ran into Prabhupada's room. He said, bring that halava. So he brought him a bowl of halava. Prabhupada ate. He said, bring more. In this way, Prabhupada finished off the whole pot of halava. So Prabhupada always told us, that the grandfather is more merciful than the father. So young devotees should not feel that, well, I didn't get any association with Prabhupada, I didn't, get to see Prabhupada. Prabhupada is your grandfather, spiritual master. And he's more, to us, he's, I sometimes feel he's chastising me because I'm just not doing as much service as I could. But for all of the young devotees, Prabhupada is, he's already so merciful. We can just imagine the grandfather, spiritual master, is more merciful. So you've got Prabhupada as your grandfather, spiritual master. And he's more merciful. I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, at that time Prabhupada said Los Angeles is a training center, and it was snowing in Boulder anyway, and they didn't know what to do with me, although I was perfectly happy to sit and read Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam all day long. But they figured I would fall into Maya, so they sent me to LA to get trained up. And that time I think Dayananda might have been the temple president or something, that he came to the airport and picked me up and brought me back to the temple. And the first devotee I ran into was a devotee named Mahapurush. And he began to tell me a story. I just walked in the door and he started telling me the story way back on 26 2nd Avenue, that he used to go there and take prasadam, because every day, everybody would come and they'd sit in Swamiji's apartment and he would serve out, rice dal chapatis and everything to everyone. And one day he stayed a little late. Everybody had sort of gotten up and left, and he stayed a little late. And he suddenly noticed that there was only 2 people in the room and that there was all these dirty pots. And he began to think, well, somehow these dirty pots get cleaned every day. And I don't see anybody else around. There's only one other person in this room, and I'm usually not here. So there's only one other person in this room who could be doing this. So he thought, wow, it's not proper, so he began to pick up the pots. At that moment, Prabhupada smiled, and he said, I was just praying to Krishna to please send someone to help me. So the amazing thing was, we know that the real perfection of, if we want to get Mahaprabhu's mercy, then he's told us, Trinadapi sunichena charodapi sehishna manina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. And nobody has realized the purport of that verse like Srila Prabhupada. Because he could have stayed in any Gaudiya mat. They all loved him. They knew that Abhay Babu sang sweet kirtans, he lectured wonderfully, he wrote wonderful articles. He could have stayed anywhere, and you go in any Gaudiya mat, you see any old sannyasi, but they just, they have very nice etiquette, and they wait on them hand and foot. He wouldn't have to do anything, but to speak of wash a pot, no cooking, no nothing, everything. He could have lived a very comfortable life in Vrindavan. Instead, here he was washing the pots for these hippies. I mean, we were like the most degraded class of persons. And Prabhupada, he had realized the purport like nobody. I mean, we couldn't even begin to imagine. Couldn't even think of doing the same thing ourselves nowadays. But Prabhupada was cooking and he was cleaning up after people like us, just out of his, Prabhupada's humility and compassion is unparalleled. There's no one like Prabhupada, and there'll never be anyone like Prabhupada.